I'm Jenna,
I'm Valerie.
And I'm Allison.
and our biome was the tropical rainforest. So, yeah. So, the climate is typically humid, warm, not windy, and it's located near the equator. So, the equator is the center line going across the Earth. The sun hits the equator straight on, making it hotter. Humid is defined as air that has very small water drops in it, and humidity is how much water drops are in the air. A humid area has a high humidity and feels wet or sticky when you are outside. A not humid area has a low humidity and feels dry. Rainforest layers. Different layers or levels are home to different animals. The canopy is the top layer with tall trees, and trees form a cover from the sun. The understory is the middle layer, and which has shorter trees and plants, and the floor would be the bottom layer, which gets very little sunlight because of the canopy's cover.
Okay, so now moving on to some helpful vocabulary to help us just understand the words moving forward. So we have energy, which is basically just food. So that allows you to move and to stay awake throughout the day, but without it, living things cannot keep living. So it is essential. And then we have prey. So that is going to be what is being searched for by another animal. So that's going to be the food in the situation or the source of energy of an animal. And then the predator is what is searching for other animals. So that's the one trying to find the sources of food and to obtain the energy. Okay, so now for some vocabulary words relating back to our food chain. So the bottom layer of the food chain is going to be producers. So producers are living things that make their own food. So they make their own food using energy from the sun. And that's typically going to be plants. It can also be a couple insects, but mainly plants that go through photosynthesis. But producers basically just don't have to consume other living organisms to get their energy. They make it themselves. So then we have primary consumers. So that's going to be living things that only eat producers or living things that make their own food. So primary producers only eat, oh no, sorry, primary consumers only eat producers. So that's going to be animals that eat plants. Here we have like a monkey, and so that one would eat a banana tree. So primary consumers don't eat other animals. And then we have a secondary consumer. So that's going to be the next level. We're getting a little higher. And these are living things that eat primary consumers for energy. So some secondary consumers eat both plants, producers, and animals, but primarily consumers. So they can't eat both. They can eat some plants, but basically the definition of a secondary consumer is that they do eat some animals. So they are allowed to eat both, but as long as they do eat somewhere in their diet other animals, then they are a secondary consumer.
All right, next on the food chain, we have tertiary consumers. And these are living things that eat primary or secondary consumers for energy. So it's the next level on the food chain. The tertiary consumers are usually the biggest or scariest animals in the area. So, for example, in this have a tiger. Most tertiary consumers do not have any other animals that eat them for energy. So they're kind of at the top of the food chain. Okay, so the transfer of energy in the food chain, transfer means to move from one place to another. So as the food chain goes from the bottom to the top, the energy is being transferred as each animal consumes the other. In the food chain, energy is transferred from one living thing to another where they are eaten for food and energy. Arrows in the food chain show which way the energy is transferring or moving. So going from the bottom to the top. For a transfer to happen, one living thing has to eat another living thing. The living thing that has been eaten has transferred and given up its energy, and the living thing that has eaten has gained energy from the other. Okay, so this is an example of the food chain. We have the producers on the bottom, which, for example, are plants such as the orchard, the banana tree, bamboo tree, and coconut tree. And then it goes up to primary consumers, which consume the energy from the plants, which, for example, are macaws, monkeys, fruit bats, or grasshoppers. And then going up again, we have secondary consumers, for example, which are iguanas and frogs that consume their energy from the primary consumers. And lastly, we have the tertiary consumers, for example, pythons and jaguars that consume their energy from the secondary.
So question 1 is the middle layer of the tropical rainforest has shorter trees and plants. What is this layer called? Understory, canopy, or floor? So the answer is A, understory, middle layer, not the tallest, but still has light to grow shorter trees.
And then for question 2, it's which word best matches the climate of a tropical rainforest? A, windy, B, dry, C, cold, or D, humid? So the correct answer would be D, humid, because the tropical rainforest has a very high humidity, many water droplets in the air, like we learned about earlier. And we also learned that areas near the equator are not windy, so it would not be A. Dry means that it has a low humidity, which is not correct for a tropical rainforest. And cold areas near the equator are warmer, so D would be the correct answer.
The last question, how do producers get their energy? A, they eat other animals. B, they make their own energy using the sun. C, they eat other plants. Or D, they do not need energy. The answer to that is B, they make their own energy using the sun. They produce their own food, so the energy they absorb from the sun and then it passes along.
And that's going to be all. Thank you.
Thank you.